What you are hearing is the sound of cinema. You are listening to the image by connecting to it in its raw form. From simple tricks of light and shadow, we have always wanted pictures to speak to us, and as cinema began, that dream became a reality. A train arrives at La Ciotat, and, according to legend, the audience dived for cover. Hyperbole or not, the wonder caused by this new arrival on the art scene, careering into the collective consciousness, was irreversible. Looking at the Lumiere brothers' landmark short from 1895, we can now view it as the unadorned image. It is a moment captured on film, a print of a memory. As we keep watching the same image, the sound of history becomes audible, and our imagination begins to add a narrative to the train. It could be out of control, hurtling towards us on the platform, like the first audiences believed. Or perhaps we're about to welcome a loved one into our arms, after a long separation. This is the concept of persistence of motion, started by a group of pioneers who moved optical tricks from the limitations of the magic lantern to the first motion pictures. Contemporary film remains informed by the silent era to this day. It employs silent techniques, even while we acknowledge cinematic storytelling has become more sophisticated. It is through the nascent time of cinema that filmmakers and film lovers can reconnect with the image in its purest form, this persistence of motion. The quest to find narrative and animation in images bore fruit when Dutch astronomer and scientist Christiaan Huygens created an early working form of the magic lantern in the 1650s, which led in 1824 to Dr. John Ayrton Paris inventing the thaumatrope, and the English doctor's optical toy led to the first recorded photograph taken by French inventor Joseph Nicephore Niépce. Faraday's law of electromagnetic conduction in 1831 provided the pathway to the power that would propel film equipment and the birth of cinema in the late 1880s. This was where Thomas Edison and William K. Dickson presented the Kinetograph, the world's first motion picture camera. The first kinetograph motion picture produced on photographic film in the United States was Monkeyshine's 1889-90. In combination with its projector partner, the Kinetoscope, a peep-show device that permitted only one viewer at a time, Dickson and Edison took their invention to the commercial market, finding popularity in carnivals and at sideshows and arcades until the Kinetoscope was officially patented in 1897. The rise of the studio system was hot on its heels, with a kinetographic theatre known as the Black Maria being built on the grounds of Edison's laboratories in West Orange, New Jersey. Construction of the theatre was completed in February 1893. Arguably, this could be the moment where cinema, as a public event, truly came into being. But the kinetoscope and kinetograph were clunky and limited. In France, the Lumieres advanced the technology of Edison and Dickson with a more lightweight camera device that crucially could project films to several people at a time. The Cinematographe was patented in 1895 and was used by the Lumieres to document everyday lives of people. The term cinematograph also coined the term cinema as we have come to know and love it today. Known as actualités, the Lumieres' films were effectively a series of mini-documentaries, such as workers leaving the Lumiere factory. This film was part of a programme of 10 short films, including Arrival of a Train at La Ciotat, that premiered at Salon Indien in 1895, the first commercial exhibition of films to a paying public. The shorts produced by Edison and Dickson and the Lumieres had whet the appetite for longer-form films. Everyday events in these early experiments were taking on mythical narrative forms, and the potential for expanding these narratives would prove to be inherent to cinema's success as an art form. Films such as Georges Méliès's Le Voyage dans la Lune fused surrealism, special effects, and innovative editing techniques to create an imaginative story. Méliès's artistic skill and joyful experimentation made the magic happen, and it still produces an effect today. Even without a soundtrack, Méliès's work makes plenty of noise in our imaginations. Silent images now had a story to link them. The innovations of Edwin S. Porter led to his renowned western The Great Train Robbery 1903, which was the first western with a narrative, and set the tropes for the genre in stone. Bank robberies, shootouts, chases. Porter had the lot. He introduced non-linear editing and techniques such as cross-cutting, which enabled film to tell a story from different perspectives. Cinema was beginning to grow, and the commercial viability of the feature film was soon accepted by the studios. Charles Tate's The Story of the Kelly Gang was largely accepted as the first commercially produced feature-length film, clocking in at around 60 to 70 minutes. Prior to 1911, Australia was the only country set up to produce feature films or films with more than one reel. With the advent of its form, cinema almost immediately attracted scandal and censorship, as it would continue to do so, right through to the present. 1896's The Kiss featured stage actors May Irwin and John Rice kissing on screen for 20 seconds, filmed at the Black Maria. It drew criticism for its perceived salacious content. What The Kiss proved was, even without sound, the power of persistence of motion to thrill, excite, intrigue and inspire curiosity was present from the very start of cinematic history. Film, therefore, has always been daring, controversial and playful, and modern film remembers silent film's lesson in this regard. The taste for sensationalism in stories was encapsulated by Florence Lawrence's emergence as the first recognisable movie star. She became victim of both studio power and celebrity obsession. Her producer Carl Laemmle orchestrated the reported death of Lawrence in a streetcar accident only to announce her resurrection in 1910, just in time for a publicity tour of St. Louis. Lawrence became the face of the independent Victor Studios, which she co-founded and co-owned, but even her star power could not stop Victor's absorption into Universal in 1917. Lawrence committed suicide in December 1938. What had been started with Lawrence became the business of personality, with Charlie Chaplin introducing his legendary character of the Tramp in the titular film from 1915. Chaplin signed the first $1 million contract in film with First National Pictures in 1921 before making The Kid. Along with Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, Chaplin brought comedy to the persistence of motion, and the lack of sound never diminished the effect of the physical comedy of these performers. The silent era was an exciting time of the new and the experimental. The films produced during this period contained some of the finest examples of expressionism in cinema history, not least in Germany, where Robert Wiener's The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and F.W. Murnau with Nosferatu captured the design of the dreamscape. These uniquely composed pieces not only represented some of the earliest examples of the horror genre, defining tropes as did The Great Train Robbery with the Western, but also demonstrated how the templates for films made decades later were constructed. Werner Herzog even remade Nosferatu in 1979. The dreamscape continues to inspire filmmakers over 100 years later, and the realisation of our dream worlds will be discussed in a later episode. By the time The Jazz Singer became the first commercially successful movie to be made with sound in 1927, silent film would begin an evolution that did not equate with exploration. Persistence of motion left an indelible mark on sound-produced films, and to revisit the films of the silent era involves unearthing the advent of meaning in an image, which sound then built on. Within the pure image, we discover whether a film truly has something to say. Film started in silence, and continues to develop through it. It is in those moments where we pause to reflect, to contemplate, that silent cinema, like the quiet stirred within ourselves, provokes meaning.